What is up, everybody? So I'm just doing a quick stream here, more so because some questions had come up about my first video, and there was some information that I had left out. So I'm just gonna refilm the first video. So if you didn't see the first video, I'm just refilming it. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to some certain things. So just to start, um, again, we're starting from the beginning. So first thing you're going to do is either download Visual Studios if you have Windows computer. I'm not sure if it's actually supported on Macs, but there's something called Xamarin Studio. Don't ask me how to spell it. It starts with an X though. So just type in C# programming for Mac in Google, and something should come up. Just to begin, I want to go over some explanations that I originally left out of the first video. Just by question and recommendation, I was told to include some of this stuff. I want to start by talking about strings. So just keep in mind before we continue, a string is a variable type. It is a collection of words that are not code, but are used by the coder. So basically, think of a string like dog, cat, and mouse, for an example. Those are three strings. They're obviously all animals, but there's three strings, which are the three variables: dog, cat, and mouse. Those are resemblance of strings. Next, just to explain a little bit of what a library is. So think, well, actually, we'll go over that shortly once we go over everything else. Next, classes. So classes are groups of codes that are not meant to be used. That are not meant to be. I apologize. That are meant to be reused. For an example, so if you have a math equation for, let me think, area of a triangle, rather than rewriting that formula every time, you can actually store it, or it is stored in a class, which is also sometimes some things are stored in a library, which is multiple classes that have already been preset, rather than you automatically typing out that formula every time. Why the question comes, why is this useful? It's actually more useful because when you have longer equations, like when you're calculating things like vectors or things like that, which are very common in coding, rewriting a formula, a class, just to help you solve the formula for the vector every time, you're trying to make things easier on yourself. You're also trying to get more work done, get more done while working less. You don't want to be working too hard to do less work, obviously. So again, if you have an example of a math equation that you can store in a class, which is something that basically the formula is, like in this scenario, the formula is something that never changes, so we can always recall that method. I put in brackets the equation here because as it is a reusable code or formula. Now, another thing that had to also come up is I didn't go too much into explaining main, and I will go in a little bit more into it later. But when we start talking about classes and breaking that up a little bit more. But just for now, all you need to know is main is a method that happens when you run a file. So when you run the class, it will run the main function from that class. So main is basically, it's a type of class. Basically, it's one of the classes, and it's just a method called main. There is nothing more to it than in between. So I apologize. So what takes place in between the main in main? So what is being programmed in between main is usually between this circular bracket, which represents the beginning of a function, squiggly bracket we'll call it, sorry, And at the end of this squiggly bracket, now you'll notice here, when I click on this behind where the point of the squiggly bracket is, it automatically highlights it and it shows me where it ends. And it says, when I just hover my mouse over the end, static void main. Okay, so it reverts back to this one here. We also have the class here, and again, class has a method called main. We'll go a little bit more into namespace and that information a little bit later, but the first lesson ultimately is just to explain how we are going to write to the console. Now, I have an example here up, and it was used originally for my first video / homework, but I think this one just does more justice to what I want to explain. So, first things first, in order to bring up the console, so this is what I've written here, and we'll go over it line for line. I actually want to bring up the console so you can see it as it has happened. So what I've done there, I pushed Control 5. And what that does, it brings up to the console. Now you'll notice it says, "Hello, hi, my name is Antonio. I am learning C# to become a programmer." Now, comparison-wise, where I'm comparing this to is right there. That is my first line, and that is what it says. Now, essentially how I did that was, I wrote console.WriteLine. Now, notice that the C is capitalized in console. That is very, very important. .WriteLine. W is capitalized and the L is capitalized. Again, those are very important. Now, just to show you, sorry, I'm talking a little bit fast. Just to show you a little bit of what happens if I try to do it lowercase, I'm going to write console.WriteLine. Now, it's already trying to automatically correct me, and as you can see, it automatically corrected it there. But in the scenario it didn't, it's going to say, okay, well, that's wrong. Now, these underlines doesn't mean you've necessarily spelled something incorrectly. It just means that the system is producing an error. Now, it's telling me here that it's throwing a bunch of errors. First of all, identifier expected. So it doesn't necessarily know exactly what this is. It's also telling me that there's a semicolon expected at the end, because generally at the end of console.WriteLine, we have a semicolon to end that line specifically of code. The next thing I wanted to go over is, so in the namespace, now the namespace, basically, it's saying that there's nothing basically to distinct. So like the namespace represents this whole page of coding. It's saying that there's nothing that can be found that relates to this. So it doesn't know what this is. So it's funny because the moment I start putting my capital letters in here, you'll notice it switches the color, and wait for it. Oh, sorry. I'm going to put my parentheses, which are circle brackets. Okay. And my semicolon. And you'll notice, no, there's no longer errors at the bottom, so everything is correct. But if you really look at the error there, you'll notice it showed like line 1, line 2, line 3. Don't let that throw you off. Majority of the issues with the code, especially at the beginning, people have issues with, and I had a lot of issues with, to be honest with you, is leaving that, not putting a semicolon or not putting the brackets in, or not even capitalizing the letters. So really, something to keep in mind as well, parentheses are what's in the brackets. So console.WriteLine, write line meaning I'm going to write something to a new line. So basically, write something on a separate line. So basically what it's saying is, as opposed to, let me just open my thing here. If I had 9 plus 9, and I wrote console.writeLine to solve the answer, it would give me a new line and write the answer on a separate line. However, if I were to, so just to show you here, let me see, how can I show you this? Okay, we'll do this. Console.writeLine, Antonio, okay? No, we'll say, let's say 9 plus, oh, I apologize. Okay. This is actually just a horrible thing to give an example for right now, at least. We'll go over it a little bit later, again. So basically, as you can see, all this here is just written on one line. Now, if there was something else slightly before this, it would have written it all in the same line. Now, in order to separate it, console.writeLine is what gives you a completely new, fresh, and clean line. So, let me try something here. Now, something to keep in mind, the other way to write things to the console, but to make things display to the console, is console.write. Console.write, what that does is it writes something to the same line. So if I were to do that, and rerun my console, you always rerun your console if you're changing something up, because it won't revert the changes until it's done. Now, here is exactly where my example is, and this is why I waited a few seconds to show you. So it says, hi, my name is Antonio, I'm learning C#. I'm learning C# programming, and then automatically typed the next line. I didn't have to do anything else. I didn't push anything else. All I did was actually just load the console. I apologize, that is incorrect. You know what? Why is it giving me a hard time? All right, we will explain this later. I apologize for this. I do have this elsewhere, and it's actually in the next lesson, and that's why it's a little harder to explain right now. So just disregard that console.write and console.writeLine. Well, right now we're talking about console.writeLine. So, as I was saying, console.writeLine will write things to a separate line, and console.write will write things to the same line. That is the ultimate message you're trying to take from this. So, console, if I hover my mouse over console, it's going to tell me class system console. So, class system console, meaning that this is a class called console, and it represents the standard input and output of error streams for console application. This cannot be inherited. So, basically, if you notice, in order to call WriteLine, I need to call the class console. Console does not only have one or two things, as we've mentioned. If I just wrote console, but you're going to see this whole list of everything come up. And these are all the things that I can write with console that will perform different tasks. So, and I promise you guys, for the next lesson, when we do get a little bit more into writing to the screen and solving equations, you're going to see exactly what the difference is between console.write and console.writeLine is. I apologize for the little bit of confusion there, but that'll be resolved by the next video, by video 2. Okay, and the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is that, so I want to save this and rerun this console again. So as we discussed the first line, now console.readKey, what that's going to do, it's actually going to separate this. So had there not been a read key, you'll notice right here, it says this, right? So it just says, this, and it's waiting for something. So really what it's waiting for me to do is push any key, and then it'll populate the second message, right? spacebar is actually something I typed in, but I'm going to show you something very quickly. If I remove this console.read key and reload my console, it prints both lines automatically without me having to push anything. So now it's waiting for a key for the next command, which so again, that was console.read key. And essentially what read key does is read key waits for the user to input a character of some sort, and now later you'll be able to set this character specifically, but it's really just asking for any key to prompt the next message or next thing to happen. So again, that's console.read key, and again, you want to put the parentheses at the end of it. If you're actually setting a specific button, you would put it within here. We're not worrying about that now. We're just going with the basics. But essentially what it's going to do is, like, if I want to push A to jump, that's what this is generally used for. So, as we were discussing, now because it's automatically printed the next message, and I've put within the quotations what I want it to write to the console, what I want to display to the user. So you'll notice it doesn't say console.writeLine, it just says, "Hi, my name is Antonio. Press spacebar." And that is exactly what is displayed within the quotation marks. So again, parentheses meaning circular brackets, quotations, and in your quotations you want to place whatever you want to be displayed to the user in the console.writeLine. And then you close it with another quotation, a circular bracket, and you put a semicolon at the end representing that I am now done with this specific line of code. Another thing that is very useful is commenting out your lines to represent each thing that they do. It is not just useful to yourself, but it is also very useful to other people coming into your program or working with your program later. So how you do that is just 2 backslashes and then write whatever you want. Now, keep in mind, if I try to write a comment on the second line, it won't work. How I would essentially do it on more than one line is I put backslash star, and then at the end reverse that. So star and then backslash. And that'll allow me to put it on multiple lines. So if I push enter, wherever that wherever that star backslash ends, that is where the comment portion ends. Now if I leave that out by accident, here's what's going to happen. Oh, sorry. Why is it still commenting it out? Oh, it's now you're going to notice that it's commenting everything out. Everything else switched to green, right? So if I just did this, and I'm just showing you a couple things. If I just did this, where backslash, and it only puts the comments on the same line, you'll notice that it has turned everything here into code. It's just saying, what are you trying to say here? I don't know what you're trying to do. This has nothing to do with code. So again, backslash star for multiple lines, and close it with a star backslash. Sorry, star is above the 8. That's why you saw the 8 there. All right. Now it's just waiting for me to push something, push spacebar. Really, I could push anything I want, and it'll prompt the next message. And again, you're gonna notice here it says, Antonio, I like to play video games. Now, the question is, why did that put that on 2 separate lines when I only pushed one key? Well, first of all, in this line right here, the forward slash and the N basically says leave a space between this. Okay? So if we see console.writeLine, again, I'm writing to the console. Antonio and /n said, okay, let's put a space between those things. And as you see, Antonio, I like to play video games. It doesn't say the /n. It just, all it's showing is that these are in two separate spots. So now it has printed those things to two separate lines. So that's something useful if you want to print things to multiple lines. More than rather than just having code or it displayed. These are all across the screen. Just want it to look a little more uniform. That'll help with that. Now the very last one here is I'm going to push enter again. Okay, now my console has closed. Now, a couple things to keep in mind here. Is that when you are writing things to the console, shouldn't even have done that. That is actually incorrect. A console, what actually leaves things to is an empty space. So just say you want an empty space with absolutely nothing on it. Before the next message displays, you write console.writeLine again. But the only difference we're going to do is we're going to do this. Now you're going to notice that there's actually this time there's nothing within those brackets, right? So because there's nothing within those brackets, it just means leave an empty space. And I'm going to run my console again. Come on. Oh, sorry, I did that too fast. So, space. Antonio, I am a programmer. Now, if I want it something, just so you can see something very quickly here, and you can see that there's a space in between these two things. Now, it printed these three messages right one after another, and the question is, why did it do that? Well, the reason why it did that was because in between here, I could have placed, in between here, could have placed a, oh goodness, sorry, my typing. Again, it's not called button mash for nothing. I put the wrong one. It's console.readLine. No, read key. Sorry about that. So, console.readKey is what it's waiting for, is why the command just automatically posted without me pushing anything. So, this prompts user to press something before next command runs. So there we are. Now we can actually close this, Control 5 again, and see this. You're going to see the space here, and I am learning programming, and it waited for me to push any key before it continued this time. So that's basically the first video. If you have any questions about that one, I hope there was a little bit more of an understanding, and I hope I went everything a little more clear this time. There is something I wanted to point out to you guys as well. I am a firm believer in work hard, play hard. Now, if you're just looking for a little study break, there's something you guys should all check out. It's called Flash 5. Now, absolutely hilarious. This guy is doing some awesome YouTube videos on like top 5 and just random different things, like top 5 body build changes, actors who look young, top 5 actors who look younger than they are, pictures that shock the world, like just random things. And not only are they absolutely funny, he actually takes recommendation. He like if you give him input on something you'd like to see on Flash 5, he posts regularly, so he's really good for that. And he'll actually take some feedback and say, all right, somebody wants to see a Flash 5 on this, so go check it out. I'll leave it in the description, but all you gotta type to find it in YouTube right there, as you can see, Flash 5, all one word, number 5. And I will post the link in the video below, but definitely check them out. Absolutely hilarious. I watched a few of them, and some of the, I've actually, oh, sorry, my personal favorite was one of his ones about extreme body changes. There's top 5, yeah, so just basically random stuff he does, like reasons why Tom Holland could be the best Spider-Man before the Spider-Man was released, coolest movie is about loners. Again, really, 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 really funny. Really check them out. And really entertaining. Good thing to do for a break. All right, well, everybody, that's all. Thank you for tuning in, and yeah, well, enjoy yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.